I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
Hey, staying busy. You know how it is about this time of year.
Listen, let's talk about it this time of year. Of course, we know people in colleges in this new world of college football. We're getting folks transferring here to there. And one of the ones that I saw here recently was Kendrick Grimes, Southern University, former Southern University running back who had a all conference career here. He hit the transfer portal. He had an extra year of eligibility left because they came out with the rule with the junior college rule. And before I get into that, give us some information with that junior college rule that they ultimately gave those kids an extra year.
Yeah, man. So there was a lot of misinformation out there that this just means that, like, Perry, like, let's just say me and you are graduating high school next year, right? There was a lot of misinformation that if me and you decided to go to JUCO over maybe Division 3, Division 2, that it wouldn't count toward our eligibility. Which, at the end of the day, it might not if they pass another rule. But for right now, what the rule was is that your eligibility expired after last season, which was the 2024-2025 college football season. You got another year of eligibility. That's how you saw a guy like Kendrick Grimes get another year, a guy like Shamar Savage get another year. I mean, there were so many players, and so it was just a special rule for this year's senior class. And so this isn't something that is going to apply to players in the future, but there is going to be another vote, and that might come down the pipeline. I don't expect it to, but this is just kind of like a one-time special rule where JUCO years, you got 1 year of eligibility instead of being, your eligibility expiring in 2024, 2025.
What does that do for the landscape now with that rule change?
Okay, well, so for this year, I don't think it had too much of an impact. You had a handful of players that got a year of eligibility left and was able to come back, and so maybe there was a team here or there that got to land as a top contributor. Like, I mean, Jackson landing Shamar Savage is huge, right? That's a big time wide receiver pickup. I don't know if he was used very well in that Prairie View scheme in the first place. You look at Tennessee State; they needed a lot, Perry, and you landed all conference guy in Kendrick Grimes, who would not have been available with the rule. But like, if we extend this is a rule year in and year out, man, it completely changes the recruiting landscape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because why would I? And I know people aren't going to like to say this, and heck, I don't want to say it because I cover FCS, right? And I cover the SWAC. But Perry, there's a kid coming out of Southern Lab, right? And maybe he's like borderline right there between like P4, G5, and Southern, right? He's one of those tweeners. Maybe he's got some grades he needs to work out. Maybe he needs to grow an inch or two. Maybe just needs to get in the weight room. Why would that player go to Southern or Grambling or Southeastern Louisiana when he can go to a JUCO and keep all his eligibility, Perry, and then transfer to a P4 with 4 years of eligibility? So it would completely change the recruiting landscape. And even talking to some JUCO coaches, and my co-host on the Blue Bloods used to coach in JUCO and now coaches at Alcorn and Leroy Frederick. A lot of the JUCO coaches don't think that's sustainable in terms of roster management, in terms of just the landscape of college football. They really think that would be a disaster. So I would imagine that's not something that we see extended into the future for kids that are at JUCO right now.
Because this is interesting, open it up, and then you factor in the Kendrick Grimes, who it ultimately he thought it was over with after last season. Then this comes out, and now he transfers over to Tennessee State. So Kendrick Grimes at Tennessee State, and then you talked about Shamar Savage leaving Prairie View, going to Jackson State. Now listen, I kind of heard some rumblings about some things, but this is just rumblings. But you know, I don't know how much to put into it, but does something seem a little fishy about that?
No, that was a rumor that was fabricated for views. And there was a mysterious tweet put out by Tremaine Jackson that people misinterpreted and tried to extend to that situation. Because you got to think about this, Barry. Shamar Savage didn't know he had an extra year till after the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So this is a guy who participated in the HBCU Combine, participated in the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So, Perry, why would Tremaine be upset that he transferred to Jackson? He was never on campus.
Yeah, he had already took him off the board.
Yeah, he was off the board. And they recruited over him. And who even knows if Tremaine would have wanted him? I'm assuming he would, right? Because Shamar's a really, really good player. So I'm not saying he's not good enough to play at PV. I'm just saying you don't even know if he factored into Tremaine's plans. And so what happened was Tremaine tweets out these biblical type references and just random tweets throughout the day, because we've seen how active Tremaine is on social media. And what happened is someone in the media misinterpreted it and tried to use it for clicks.
And that's why I'm glad we got that clarification, because I saw it, I'm like, but then it makes sense because look, we're talking about this JUCO rule, this new guideline that basically gave these players eligibility, and Savage fell right into that the same way Kendrick Grimes, where these guys thought it was over with for them, that their collegiate careers were done, but then it gives them that extra year of eligibility for them to go out and use it. Let's look around the conference, the SWAC. Let's talk about some other players. Give me some notable players that are leaving some programs before we talk about some of the programs that are bringing in some players.
Oh my gosh, man. I mean, look, there's this, at this point, there's so many transfers to keep up with, Perry. Like, and I was joking with Sam Perter from Hero Sports, and I was like, man, these FCS to FBS trackers, why in the world did I even like sign up to do this? I mean, it's like every single day, man.
It's like being in those group chats with 50 people, and it's just conversation that has nothing to do with you, but the notifications continuously go off.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. But I'll say this: I think, it starts. So to kind of get like a holistic view in the portal. I mean, you got your big players that left in the first window. Your Malachi Bailey's from Alcorn State going to Arizona. Malachi was a guy who we thought his eligibility expired. If I'm not mistaken, he got another year of eligibility. He goes up to Arizona. Giovanni Gibson from UAPB, I mean, arguably the best wide receiver in the conference last year, goes to Oklahoma. Now, I did hear that in spring practice that he did break his leg.
No!
And so he's going through some rehab. They said it, from what I heard, it was not a clean break, so there's a chance he could come back later this season. But we know with injury waivers, he'll get another waiver. So I think Giovanni's going to be okay. He just needs to get healthy there. And man, Oklahoma's wide receivers are cursed. And they lost 6 wide receivers last year to injury, Perry, and now they've already lost 2 in spring. So insane. I think James Ash from Florida A&M, another spring transfer window guy. He goes from Florida A&M to Auburn as defensive tackle, a multi-time all-conference guy. Andrew Jones, linebacker from Grambling State, goes to Ole Miss. Arguably one of the best linebackers in the country last year, not even just the SWAC, right? I mean, that was a huge loss there. You got Joshua Nobles from Jackson State to UMass earlier in the first window. So
that's a big loss.
Huge loss there. So I just think there's a handful of guys. Aiden Jones from Prairie View, what was a breakout freshman last year, earned freshman All-American honors. He goes to Texas State from Prairie View. I think that was a player that Coach Jackson and that new staff probably wanted to keep around. But when you start getting those big time offers, and then at the end of the day, man, like Tennessee State lost like everybody to the portal, and a lot of those guys did go FBS, as some of those guys followed Eddie to Bowling Green. So I think that's expected, right? But still, man, Tennessee State just gutted in terms of HBCU teams who lost a lot to the portal.
Yeah, wasn't it Jackson State? Isaiah Spencer headed to Virginia Tech as well.
Yep.
So
another interesting loss. At the end of the day, Terry, I tried to prepare people who listen to the podcast version of our show, because we have 2 different ones. We got the YouTube with Coach Fred, podcast with me and Timothy, and I talked about it on the podcast. So I thought the spring window was even going to be worse than maybe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just because of this. I talked to a few head coaches around the FCS. There was way more tampering in the spring window than there was in the first window. And here's why, Perry. The spring window comes after spring practices. So guess what, man? Perry, if me and you are assistant coaches at Sam Houston State or Texas A&M, we really thought we had somebody at left tackle and defensive end. If those guys aren't playing well, Perry, you know what we need to do? We need to pivot. Does Texas Southern have anyone we like? Does Incarnate Word have anybody we like? What about Northern Arizona, Montana State, Southern? Who can we go tamper with and improve the floor of this room? And then on top of that, too, you look at the house settlement coming down the pipeline, Perry. The earnings for these players could potentially be capped, right? Because every team's supposedly going to have a cap in this house settlement era. This was a lot of players looked at this as their last time to really go cash in on a free market, and so that also increased the activity in the spring transfer portal window. And so I think that's why you saw so many players who maybe me and you and the fans didn't expect to hit the portal. They actually did hit the portal.
Let's look on the other side to this, and let's talk about the guys, some names that coming into the conference, and particularly the SWAC. Any names of some guys that, catch your attention? Any programs bringing in anybody?
Man, TV's bringing in about 100 people, it feels like. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because they added it's interesting because they added a bunch, like their classes, like this weird tier, right? Because a lot of transfer portal classes, just from me evaluating over the past few years in terms of overall FCS, they either have a lot of unproven FCS guys or they have a lot of proven FCS guys. Like that's how the classes usually boil down. Prairie View did both. They added a whole bunch of FCS guys with not a lot of playing experience, but they have a lot of potential. Then they went and got a lot of FCS guys that had a lot of playing time elsewhere in the FCS. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. They added a few guys that I think are probably going to come in and be instant starters. You look at someone like a Malachi Williams from West Georgia, Nick Haynes from Townsend at linebacker, Trevon Jones from Northwestern State, Andre Dennis Lamar at wide receiver, Chaney Fitzgerald at wide receiver as well, probably going to be instant starter. They go and add a defensive back from Princeton and Peyton Talley, who I really, really like. More of like an in-the-box, downhill tackling safety. Also, Dylan Spencer, a guy who's been around the SWAC, right? He was at Jackson State under Prime. He goes the JUCO route, starts last year at center for a pretty good Central Arkansas team. I believe he didn't allow a sack last year. He's probably going to be the starting center for Prairie View. So they added a lot of talent there. Just looking across the conference, Jackson State, I think added a lot of guys. I'll say this. I think a budding star in the conference could potentially be Kenyon Christian, running back from San Diego State. They added him in the first portal window. I think he is a perfect 1-2 punch with Ahmad Miller, who they have coming back at running back. And then you look at what they added in the spring window. They find a way to keep Nathan Rimbert in the house, who entered the portal initially, decides to come back. That's a huge pickup for them. And then we talked about the Savage pickup, and then they add 2 offensive linemen from Tennessee State, one of which started at Tennessee State last year. So I think Jackson did a really, really good job addressing the needs in the portal. And then for Florida A&M, man, I thought they were going to be a big winner, right? They go and add an All-American level quarterback in C.J. Montez. He decides yesterday to go back to Kent State. They add another kid with a ton of potential but no playing experience from Toledo. So I'm very curious to see how FAMU looks at quarterback this year. But Perry, the interesting thing is I just mentioned that the Prairie View adds like 50 transfers, right? The weird thing's going to be, and something I cannot wait to see, Perry, I look across the West, right? Nobody else was super active in the portal. I think Southern signed like 2 Division I transfers, and one was a long snapper, Perry. So Southern not super active in the portal. UAPB adds a really good wide receiver in Jalen Witcher, who was a freshman All-American at Presbyterian, spent a few years in Delaware. Texas Southern not super active in the portal, a handful of transfers here and there. I think the second most active team in the portal was either Grambling or Alcorn. I think both of those programs maybe added 8 to 10 transfers. But you got a Prairie View team that's probably going to, when you add D2 transfers in, Perry, you're probably going to get somewhere upwards of 50 plus, 60 plus transfers coming in for Prairie View. So it's going to be a very interesting study for me to see what works best. Does the Southern strategy work, where you recruit from the JUCO high school rank and you develop these programs, or can PV really go out here in the portal and sign as many portal players as they can and flip a roster and win the West? I'm going to be very, very curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I am too, because, that has been the rumblings amongst, Southern fans of what are we doing? What is this? Where is this program going? What kind of identity will this program have? What do the coaches want out of this? And Is it hard out there for Southern to get the players that the people feel that we should be getting here at Southern? That's all the thing. And then somebody asked me the other day, who do I think was the favorite to win the swag? I said, hell, I don't know who's gonna be on the rosters until we get to fall camp. That's the other part to it, Blue. I don't know until we get to fall to make sure that these rosters are in fact intact.
I don't blame you. I mean, so we've done we've done early predictions. I think I feel it, I don't know about you. I feel much safer predicting the East right now. But I think the East is going to be such a great race. And I'll say this: as of right this second, Jackson State is the most talented team on paper right now, and they look like, to me, because Perry, we've only had one repeat Celebration Bowl champion. That was that A&T run, right, when they were. Those A&T teams were so talented.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson probably has the best chance, I think, out of all those years to be the team that repeats, man, just with how that roster is built. Because they really sold out and brought back some key contributors that I really didn't think were coming back. Like, if you would have told me in December that they would have found a way to keep Jeremiah, they would have found a way to keep Travis Terrell, Jacoby and Morgan would be back, Tillian would be back. They would add Samar Savage and Nathan Rimbert. And I would have been like, yeah, okay, because they just have endless money. They found a way to keep those guys in the house, and they're going to be so talented coming into the season, and their schedule lays out really nicely. But here's the thing: Sam's got some quarterback issues. If they figure that out, they'll be super talented. You have Andrew Body coming back to Bama State with how good that defense has been under Eddie Robinson Jr. And then look at yesterday, Perry, Alabama A&M and Sam Shade go out and sign Mekhi Hagan.
They did.
That was quarterback.
Big time, because I thought he was going to be at Lamar. He was at Lamar for the spring, and then, hey, here he is, boom, at Alabama A&M.
Insane pickup for them, and they've done I think they lost a lot, Perry, so I'm still a little bit skeptical just because they lost some of their, like, freshman All-American, their young contributors, but I think that program was not usually in the same place that Prairie View was. So, like, if me and you took a head coaching job at Alabama A&M, I don't think we would have had to tear the roster down because obviously they were the only team with an HBCU draft pick. So there was apparently talent on that roster. Prairie View did not have any talent on that roster. So I get why Tremaine had to tear it down to the stud, and you understand why. But I think the East is going to be super interesting with what all they have. But, man, you look at the West, Perry, and it is just a notebook of question marks right now. Perry, when you look at the West, I don't think either one of us expect UAPB to compete next year. Texas Southern was a 5-win team. They're the quietest team in the SWAC, Perry, because I think you have to have like some secret invite or code to get any information about what Texas Southern's doing. Because I'll tell you one thing, Perry, they are not going to update the roster on the website. So good luck trying to figure out who's there. But then you look, Grambling brought in some promising pieces. I do think they should take a step forward in Mickey Joseph's second year. Southern won the conference last year. You guys really didn't lose, I think, as much as people are giving Southern credit for. I think Southern should be the favorite right now to repeat in the West. But then you got PV with 100 new players. And then on top of that, too, you have Alcorn, which has been a little bit quiet. I do think they signed a better transfer portal class than people are giving them credit for, but they have a major quarterback issue there. So we know, Perry, you're not going to win anything in the SWAC without a quarterback. So the West is, again, such a toss-up. But right now, I think if you're looking at who should be the favorite, I do think it would be disingenuous not to say with everything they have coming back that it should be Jackson State for now.
I don't want to hear about Jackson State, but I feel good about Southern, Blue.
Fair.
All right.
Southern should be good, man. And I'll tell you this. I really want to see what that quarterback looks like because he's had a really good end to the year. And I wish we could go back and him be healthy for the SWAC championship. Because, Perry, me and you talked at the SWAC championship, and we both kind of looked at each other like, when I saw him walk out of the tunnel in sweatpants, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know how good that is.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see in terms of the progression for Jalen Woods as well. Dealt with a concussion coming out of the Bayou Classic, headed into the SWAC championship. Blue, let everybody know out there where they can find you, man, and keep up with this news because as the world continues to evolve and change with the transfer portal, you are the guy to follow. So for them to follow and want to keep up with their prospective schools, how do they keep up with you?
Yeah, man, follow me at Zach McKinnell on all social media. The Blue Bloods on all podcast streaming platforms and YouTube, and then FCS Football Central on si.com/college/FCS.
Blue, as always, man, this is my man Zach McKinnell for the voice that you guys hear that are out there. He is on FCS Football Central. Then he and I, of course, cover SEC baseball on Mondays at 10 a.m. on the On the Yard Network. So if you want to keep up with that, some great series. You're going to be getting some texts from me throughout the day because you text me on Thursday, but there's some stuff going on. Me and you will be talking today, man.
Oh, I watched it last night, man. It was late. I didn't hit you up, but man, we're going to have a busy show on Monday. I'll tell you that.
We will, man. Zach, man, appreciate as always, man, the insight that you have, especially on this level, man, is always appreciated. And I love having the conversations with you, and the people love to hear from you because you give insight that a lot of times we hear through the rumor mill. So to be able to get that and then figure it out to know what's the facts and what's not, man, I appreciate all that you do, Blue, as always.
Appreciate you, man. Anytime.